Hello, my name is Alexey, and today I'll give you my view of software development project manager, and we'll see what project manager should and shouldn't do and what makes a good project manager good. This presentation may sound familiar to those who've heard it on my last speech here at Speakers Club, but it will be a different thing. Firstly, a few words about me. I used to be an SAP consultant, then a developer, then I switched to project management. Now I'm doing project management for more than 6 years, and during these 6 years I launched about 15 large and medium and a lot of small projects. And I'm a certified project management professional, so you can trust me. And what people usually think project managers do. So some people are really thinking that project managers just asking how's the progress, and the idea of my presentation, the short summary of this presentation can be that we do ask how's the progress, but there are a lot of things that we do besides that. And I divide project managers' skills into 4 groups: project management hard skills, soft skills, business domain knowledge, and technical knowledge. We'll have a brief overview of every skill group, and we'll start from hard skills, because without knowing that, you cannot call yourself a project manager. First, we need to discuss what is the project. Basically, project is some amount of work called scope that have to be done without some fixed timeline and for fixed amount of money, calls its cost, or it's also can be referred as budget. And well, not every activity that is limited in scope, time, and budget can be called project. For example, what do you think? If someone asks you to fry an egg, will it be a project or not? Please put plus sign to chat if you think it is a project, or minus if you think it's not. Well, definitely there will be limitations. You have fixed money for that, and time is limited as well. And congratulations to those who think it's not a project. You are right. It's not a project because anyone can fry an egg. The result of this activity is not unique, and you don't need to apply project management techniques to fry an egg. So another criterion of a project is uniqueness of the result. So this gives us project manager's objective. It's to finish all work within the given time and budget, or in other words, to hit the project triangle, and at the same time to keep stakeholders satisfied. New thing here is stakeholders, and stakeholders are all people who are interested in your project in any way. It may be, and it definitely will be, your customer, your team, your management, and users of your product, which you are going to develop, and probably some other people from government, who knows. So it's very important to keep all of them satisfied with how the project is going. And yeah, that's basically it. It sounds like a simple task if everything is defined and nothing is going to change, but in reality, we don't know the future, and literally anything can happen tomorrow. That's why we should be always ready to adjust our plans. And this thing has a special name. It's called uncertainty. The higher the uncertainty, the more complicated is your project, and the harder it will be for project manager to do it on time, budget, etc. So just to summarize, what is a project? It's something where scope, time, and budget are constrained, result must be unique, uncertainty is expected, and stakeholders must be satisfied. And all projects consist of 5 phases: initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and control, and closure. These 5 phases are also referred as life cycle. And we'll go briefly through all phases. And the first phase is initiation. The first and the very important goal of this phase is to understand project constraints, to define them somehow. Those things that we've mentioned before, such as budget, timeline, and scope, they must be identified before the project starts. And it's very important to identify it correctly. It doesn't mean that project manager is the only person who should do that. Well, definitely a project manager can ask for help from analysts or other team members, but he's obviously ultimately responsible for properly for this exercise to be properly done. And the result of this activity, defining project constraints, should be put to the document called project charter. Well, every project should have some set of documents, and the very first one should be a project charter. And in the end of the project, it will be possible to check whether the project was successful or not by comparing planned things in project charter versus the fact when the project actually ends. For example, if we planned to spend 100K on the project and we spent 120K, the project was not successful. Next thing important on this phase is to identify stakeholders, and this information should go to stakeholder register. It's very, very helpful to have this document on the project as well. And well, it would be a very easy task if you would only need to identify them, but next a little bit more tricky thing is to classify them and to build your engagement strategy based on this information. And I'll show you a short example of that. For example, you have this stakeholder register and you somehow estimate influence the guys have on your project and their interest in the project. And well, simple scoring, high and low for every person, for every parameter. Then, for example, using this interest influence matrix, you can understand how should you engage every person from this list to your project. Obviously, this guy, Mr. Smith, is the most interested and powerful guy in our project, and we should engage him as much as we can and consult him regarding our solution. At the same time, Mr. Jones, third-party vendor's team leader, has low power and low interest. So we just should monitor his engagement and reactions on our project. And this is the last thing of the initiation phase. Next phase is requirements definition and planning. And as it's obviously, we can say the first goal of this phase is to define requirements because it's very important what you really need to do, or you would probably like to gather it from your customers and users and whoever else is involved here. And it's a very common case when project manager does this activity on their own, but of course, if the business domain or technical domain is too complex for them, they can acquire analysts' help. Either it will be a business analyst or solution architect or some other guy. And these requirements should go to some sort of requirements documentation, which is quite obvious. And next goal of planning is to actually make some plans. When you have everything, when you have enough requirements for that, you would like to plan timeline, budget, quality, etc., whatever you need to plan, because based on type of the project, you may want to plan different things. And no matter what methodology would you use, will it be something waterfallish or agile-ish? Well, probably it will be some hybrid. You should definitely have this documentation. It can be a simple sequence of sprints if it's agile methodology, or it will be a detailed Gantt chart, but you must have some plan. And the good practice is to have this plan visual for all the team, so it won't be a secret to anyone. Because basically, well, when people take part in planning and they know what plan should they successfully execute, it makes work for them easier. The next phase after the planning is done, well, I actually combined two phases, execution and monitoring, because it's very hard to distinguish between them sometimes. And the first goal of this phase is surprise, oversee the project. If you recall this guy, and if you don't want to be called a parrot, you need to develop something more convenient for the team, more convenient than just asking how's the progress. But anyway, you need to know how's the progress. And the thing that may help us here is project metrics. Either it will be earned value method for classic projects or burn down diagrams for agile projects, or maybe anything else. It's nothing else as a progress bar for you and for your stakeholders. You need to clearly understand what's going on and where is the finish, when is the finish. And next thing is to engage stakeholders properly. Well, ideally, you should have that plan, that engagement strategy, and you need to carefully follow it. And during these activities, you'll probably do a lot of meetings, create a lot of reports, and conduct a lot of demos. Well, not necessarily you as a project manager should do that, but in most cases, you will be involved here. And the second batch of goals for execution and monitoring comes here. First thing is to manage change requests. Change request is basically any request that can affect your plans. And change request may put you behind schedule, or it may overrun your budget. So you need to carefully review them. And the good practice here is to have change request management policy, which will be agreed upon with all stakeholders, because this way you can be sure that there won't be a lot of surprises in your project for anyone, for any stakeholder. Next thing, and this is the very important thing, is to support your team. Well, I have a couple of slides for this. Firstly, feel the difference between the leader and the manager. And definitely, you don't want to be a manager. You should work with your team. And well, why should you do that? All people feel your attitude to work. And if you want to be manager, no one will trust you in the end. But at the same time, if you'll be a leader, you'll improve your skills significantly. And as time will go, you will become better and better, and your skills will grow. And another thing here, if you want to be a manager and you work in a company where you can be a manager, I think it will end up with the situation when other people will become managers eventually. And this situation may happen. Well, maybe a lot of people would like to work to be managers in this company, but it's dead end. It's dead end both for your career, for all the good things you could have in your life. So please don't be a manager. And the last phase of a project is closure. Well, probably the most important one, but all of them are important actually. And the goals of this phase is to ship deliverables and to get customers' acceptance in form of formal acceptance. This should be an email or I don't know what, saying we have accepted your project, you're awesome. Just to present it to your management and to say that it's done and I'm a good project manager. And last but not least is to fill the lessons learned documentation to make your fellow project managers, colleagues' lives easier. This is sort of document you write everything that you've learned during the project, and next time anyone starts project, they can refer to it and get some lessons from the documentation without learning them in real life on the project, I mean. And another important thing from hard skill set is risk management, and it's taken out of all phases, not because it's not part of any phase. It's actually a part of all phases. It should be done throughout the project. This is what you should constantly do. The first step of risk management, it's a very simple thing. You need to identify risks, evaluate them, for example, by multiplying cost and probability of risk. Then you need to plan risk and mitigation plans, mitigation and response plans for those risks risks that you find valuable, and you need to implement risk responses when the risk occur. All this information should go to risk register. And here I will show you a short example of risk management. For example, we have this risk matrix. Cost of risks are in the column, and probabilities of risks are in the row. So multiplying them, we have these numbers. And let's agree that we can skip green and yellow risks, because we are tough guys. We only want to manage high red risks. And the first risk that we want to manage is that Godzilla destroys our office. Well, obviously, the cost of this risk is huge. It should be 3, but the probability of it is 0. So multiplying 3 and 0, we get 0. And the risk overall evaluated is low risk. So we don't need to have a mitigation and response plan for that. And for example, something more realistic, third-party solution is not scalable for us. Well, it can be a showstopper at the end of the project. And this showstopper would require a lot of work at the later phase of the project. So cost and probability, cost is very high and probability is medium, because we really don't know, we didn't do investigation properly before. So we evaluate this risk as high, and we need to create mitigation and response plan for that. So for example, mitigation can be to investigate scalability at the early stage of the project, and response to change the third-party vendor. That's how it works for risk management. And that's basically it for hard skills. Next group is soft skills. Soft skills is anything related to your attitude to work, to people around you. It does not contain a lot of algorithms, but still it's important to master these skills. And the first thing we need to know here is problem solving. Problem solving is skill to solve problems, actually, and it has quite a simple algorithm that you should follow every time you meet a problem. And you'll definitely meet it a lot of times, because project always contains a lot of problems. And the algorithm for problem solving is to define the problem, determine the root cause of it, develop potential solution, select one, implement the solution, and evaluate the outcome. And the thing with this skill is that everyone considers it to be obvious. Therefore, sometimes people skip steps of this algorithm, and it can be a tragedy. For example, if you're skipping step number 3, you are not developing potential solution and just pick the first one that comes to your mind, it may end up with at the evaluation step that your solution is not working perfectly well. It could be better. Or sometimes people are not defining the problem properly. So they just think of something, but they don't put an effort to define it. What exactly is the problem? So please keep this thing in mind when you are trying to solve problem. Next step, next skill, sorry, of the set of soft skills is time management. And when I hear time management, I imagine a guy like this who have more than one pair of hands, who can do anything, a lot of things at the same time. But people are not very good at multitasking, actually. Even computer processors are not good at it, those with one core. So don't think that you can handle a lot of things at the same time. It's a wrong pattern. Instead of that, you'd better learn some time management framework. Well, this schema is just an example of one. You can Google, there are a lot of time management frameworks, or you may want to create your own. Well, this thing will definitely help you to save a lot of time and to be productive when a lot of things in more than one project goes wrong. So next thing I'd like to cover is assertiveness. Assertiveness is a quality of being self-assured without, not self-assured, sorry. It's a quality to be being self-confident without being aggressive. And what does it mean? Some things will come up. Some people will approach you and say, okay, we need this, please do this and this, we have this task, please do this. And if you will be passive and you will accept everything, most likely you will overrun the budget of the project and you will bring too much work to your team, or on the other hand, the team will refuse to do anything for the project, which is important for the end customers. But on the other hand, if you will be too aggressive and pushy, it will not be comfortable to work with you, and well, you won't do good progress. So you need to keep it middle. You have to be assertive. Well, you should somehow make people do what they don't want to do, but if it's beneficial for the project and it's actually the goal of the project. And on the other hand, you should not be too much aggressive in that. So next skill I'd like to cover is positive attitude. Well, my point is that you don't have to be smiling all the time like you have mental issues, but still you should have this positive attitude, and it inspires people around you. Well, the team always looks at their project manager, and if project manager is the one who is demotivated on the project, guess what will happen to the project? It will never be a success. So try to keep positive thinking and inspire people around you. Next skill is proactivity. There are two moments when you can think about the problem. When it already happened, it's called reactive way of thinking, and beforehand, before the things have happened, it's a proactive way. So if you're thinking about problems, about tomorrow's problems today, you will never be in trouble. Next skill is negotiations. Well, you are not a mafia boss for sure, but a lot of things can be resolved with conversation. And the art of negotiations have to be mastered, definitely, if you are project manager. Well, it's hard to overestimate it, actually. I think that's one of the most important things you need to learn, because without it, you won't be able to get success on your project. Another important thing about meetings and conversations is facilitation. And facilitation is a skill of making meetings productive, even if you don't have a clue what are they talking about on this meeting. And this guy here, probably a facilitator, because you see everyone looking at him, and his goal is to make it productive and not to waste the time of all these people on this meeting. Every meeting should have some initial goal, and this goal should be achieved. The facilitator's duty is to make that happen. So just to summarize, this is the list of soft skills I found most valuable for a project manager. Probably you would like to add some more, but I really doubt you can remove anything from this list. And next skill group I'd like to cover is technical knowledge. Well, there is a constant debate in project managers communities, at least here in St. Petersburg, whether project managers should or should not have this knowledge. Well, especially at the beginning of the career, it's better to have the skill than not to have, because you should speak the same language with your developers, testers, and whoever else. And here on the right, the list of things that I use in my work from time to time, not every day, definitely. It should be, well, it's very convenient when you can do some technical things without acquiring help from your team, without distracting them from their work. Because if you need a person, each time you need to find some information in database, or when you cannot debug a simple thing in Chrome, well, you will be kind of not very helpful on the project. So basic things for me is Unix console, simple commands, regular expressions for search, Excel formulas and VBA, well, Excel is still alive, and it always will be. You definitely need to understand Git, how it works, what is it, what do we need it, why do we need it for. Databases and SQL, sometimes it's helpful. Client-server applications architecture and Postman client, it's super and extremely helpful things that will help you to do a lot of things on your own without getting to your team. Web tools and Chrome for debugging, and at least understanding solution architectures in order to be a better project manager. And last but not least is business domain knowledge. I think here at DevExperts, it doesn't make sense to say a lot about business domain knowledge. We all know that knowing fintech, knowing capital markets makes us better. But in other companies, such as huge outsourcing companies, they also consolidate projects by business domain, and they know that business domain experts will do projects better than people who don't know business domain. So no matter what you will do, you should expect that you need to dig into business domain somehow. Whether it will be a deep dive or not, but still some knowledge will be required. And it's always interesting to learn new things, and especially here at DevExperts, these capital market things, at least for me, it's very interesting, though it requires a lot of time to get familiar with it. And that's basically it. Sounds like project management is a complex thing, which it sometimes is. But anyway, it's a cool opportunity to meet new people and to improve your skills, because sometimes you will really face challenges your work. And thank you for your attention.